All right, I've noticed a new white collar knowledge worker pattern, and I've seen it for a while, but I think I've picked up on it finally, and that is, you're in a Zoom call or maybe Teams, I don't know which one, and then
Not
people
Skype.
people are writing in the chat window while people are talking. And I used to think that the chat was kind of like you could ignore it and you don't need to be involved in it. But it's finally clicked in my head that what's actually happening is instead of one of the participants interrupting someone talking, they're actually interrupting in the chat. They're kind of adding a comment there.
Yeah.
And is this a behavior that you two have observed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't know. You say you're kind of saying it like it's a bad thing. I think I kind of like it. I think I don't.
Well, this is what I wanted to just. I think it doesn't seem like a bad thing. Like I think it's okay because it plays on the there's a lot of people. I guess you could go on either side. You could be like we do in a podcast where you're just like, I want to make a point, so I'm going to keep talking till the other people stop talking. And that's a rock solid production technique. But I don't think that works in normal discourse when you're like supposedly like working with each other. And so I guess this works because the group as a whole can see the comments. Now, so that's fine, but it made me realize what are some other like chat room behavior things that I'm not picking up on, right? Because I think this is a pretty major like discourse thing, right?
You know what's funny though is like the person talking doesn't see the comments, right? They're busy talking, so they can't like focus and read at the same time. So like they're letting you monologue over there, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna make some side notes over here, and sometimes it just runs on. And then you finally stop, take a breath, and you're like, I wonder if there are any comments. And you look back, and there are like 15 posts, and you're like,
right. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing as like live streaming, right? Where like you'd be doing your stuff, and you like are watching the live stream comments, and you can choose to ignore them, read them, and do nothing about it, or read them and respond to them as you're doing the streaming, right? And I've seen all sorts of behavior, but maybe that's the first thing to calibrate on is if there's a primary and secondary speaker in a conversation, when do they know to have the chat interrupt them and derail them, right? Because that's the problem in a white collar corporate meeting. Is like interrupting is actually fine. Right. It's the derailing, and you're like, we haven't even moved past the cover slide yet. Right. And so like how do you moderate that with the chat stuff?
I don't know. I think there is a natural tone, I guess, in a meeting where it's collaboration going on, not just a presentation. Mm-hmm. It's sort of, I think there's a natural rhythm of you allow someone to finish their point. That's what you're doing by putting something in the chat. You're allowing them to like flush that out, not derailing them, getting them a chance to do it. And then I think as you as a participant in the meeting, sort of as that, as you complete your thought, then that's the natural time to look over at the chat window. And then if it's like a comment or a question, or sometimes it's a segue, it's like, we could do it here. We could say like, oh, that was a good point. Matt, what do you think? Right. And Matt, I see that you've put some comments in here about the up for Q4. What do you think, Matt? And that's just a natural way to kind of keep the information going.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. I mean, I use it to like footnote the conversation on screen where I don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to make a point to the conversation where if we circle back to it, that's fine, but this comment is for the other people, but I don't feel like interrupting. So a lot of times it's direct messages, or you hop on a call with like a third party and you set up a private chat with everybody on your side at the same time. So, you guys have a back channel while, you're talking in person and you're chatting on the side. That's just part of, I don't know, that's part of the modern IT worker
also,
flow.
I think a great use is just annotating a meeting as someone's talking about like, as we went through last time, and then someone throws in the link. It's sort of like someone's doing a little work for you. Like, here were the slides for last time. Or if, we were talking here, it's like, Well, I really like Matt and Kote. Why don't you guys take that and figure that out? And that would be spawn off another chat. Then you guys would start talking about it, maybe set up a meeting. So it's sort of like, I don't know. I feel like, audio as we sit here, as many people like to listen to podcasts while they're doing something else. It's like, if you're forced into a corporate meeting, it is very easy to like continue other parts of the conversation, in chat. So there's plenty of time to do that.
So I haven't thought of that part, but the annotating things that are happening, taking notes. I like that. That's interesting. It's kind of like we used to have a bot that would in our live stream would tell you the weather in our 3 geographies, right? Which is a good check-in on time.
Well,
now
that's just making sure you don't have small talk.
I've got a few follow-up questions here, and I feel like I'm getting excited about this because longtime listeners, and perhaps you too will remember that I am not allowed to wear boat shoes by dictate of the corporate compliance officer until I'm like in my late 60s or something.
Or so, you're on a boat.
Maybe so. And so the closer I get to being an old person, like the more excited I get because I'm going to finally wear those boat shoes. So I feel like I've got a lot of old person questions about this new way of communicating in the office place, right? Oof. And so my first question that an old person would have who wants to be sensitive, fit in with things. I don't want to offend the zillennials or whatever. Is like, so if I am a primary in the meeting, is it rude of me to ignore the chat, or do I have to engage with it?
It probably depends on the sort of meeting it is, right? When you have, I don't know what the threshold is. Maybe it's if you have more than a pizza team of people on the conversation, like it's becomes more of a presentation. You can't really have a round table with 10 people. I mean, you can, but really it kind of falls to like there's probably 3 primary people, and everyone else is kind of bearing witness and adding footnotes.
I'm gonna say if it's more than one pizza, you can ignore it.
Well, exactly. I mean, because you realize like when you have 10 people, that's too many people for a pizza. That everyone is not you're not expecting everyone to have the same input, right? It's just unrealistic. And so the people having the primaries on the conversation, they're talking to each other. The chat becomes like the supplementary conversation. They could dip into it if they want, or they could ask like their lieutenant, hey, anything in the chat we need to stay on top of. Or that person can be kind of tasked with like raising those issues if they're worthwhile.
I like this. So because one of the metaphors I'm playing with here is I feel like the chat window is kind of like the parking lot, right? You're always like, let's parking lot something.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's an even longer term thing. Whatever chat window you ignore is like the parking garage. It's just like long-term parking at the airport. You got to drive a bus to get back to it. Like, but it's going to be affordable. You can just ignore it totally. This brings me to my second final question on this topic, even though, I could obviously go on, is, okay, so I've been from the perspective of the speakers, the people talking. Now, I want to make sure I follow the decorum of the chatter, right? Now, me, I would be like, is there a place I can type to express my essence? And I will fill it. Right. And so there must be a guideline for the brevity that you have to have, because I would gladly write up an essay and put it in the chat about my thoughts about what's currently being said. But I know that's wrong. So like, how do you triangulate? Like, do I type a sentence? Is 3 sentences too much? Like how much can I add in the parking lot?
I think 2 lines. I think you just get like, I'm just looking at my last meeting. Just basic, maybe that's 2 sentences, but just 2 lines of text. That's all you're like. Because that's not the time. We don't need a memo in there. It's sort of, because I do think, a couple of things is, more on the positive side is like the chat can also be, unless a parking lot can also be sort of like real-time facts, much like we use the software-defined talk chat where someone chimes in, like we can't remember something or we say something wrong, someone gives a quick correction, or they, I think you meant this, right? Yeah. So I think that's sort of like the benefit to let's call it the primary in the meeting. It's like, as you're talking and you kind of like can't quite remember something or not sure if fact is right, it'll often pop up in the chat. So I think that's what you're just doing there, right? It's just kind of like maybe a couple open issues, making a couple points. And I think what you said before, something like that exists in corporate America. It's like every meeting has a hierarchy. So it's like, if you're not the top of the hierarchy, putting some stuff in the chat is probably a decent way to go. And if it is truly something that everyone needs to hear, then of course, by all means, speak up and get it right. Now, there is something I wanted to get your take on, Cote, is for those of us in the world of Teams, there's the idea of like, once the meeting ends, the chat persists, right? That's like a big thing in Teams, like it just always sits out there. So, like the meeting never, if you will, officially ends. It sort of just times out. Like after like a week goes by, and if it's not a regular meeting, that chat sort of like flows to the bottom. But like you can also I often see the phenomenon of like a meeting ends and then be a flurry of things in the chat, like, oh, here's the link, here's this, oh, I meant to say this. So it's just kind of interesting. I don't feel like that happens in a Zoom as much, but that's sort of an interesting, I don't know if it's a feature or a bug of Teams, but it is something that exists.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is like just rediscovering Usenet and like the concept of like a long running thread as we have in our Slack, available at softwaredefinedtalk.com/Slack, if I remember, that you can join. But like I can see, because I have encountered some interesting, I don't know, deficiencies in corporate life that you're kind of in the same area of, where a lot of times you start a chat with a couple of people, right? And then that should just be like its own long-lived chat instead of these three people I'm talking with. But at least in my work environment, people aren't very good at knowing when to change a hallway conversation into like a permanent silo. To use your you remember stock versus silo, Brandon? That was a good metaphor.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but okay. So what I'm hearing is two things. In my near the boat shoe era of my life, I've got to. There's still some things I got to adapt to. One, if I'm speaking in a work meeting, I should kind of boot up some of my podcast live stream stuff and acknowledge and engage with the chat that I'm seeing there, right?
It depends on the size of the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
What for 1 to 2 pizza meetings, cool. If we're like working at like a Brazilian steakhouse buffet situation, not good, right? Like
I'm not sure what that means, but
you go to a Brazilian steakhouse, but they have multiple buffets. They're giant. They serve a lot of people, right?
Yes.
So imagine a Gaddytown pizza place.
A webinar? Is that what you're describing?
Where
the other voices are full on muted and all you see is their chat.
Exactly. So that would be a good example, because now the an annoying side of this is when you are in a big town hall meeting and the chats are just basically like a bunch of emojis of hearts and things like that you see.
Yes.
Those are fantastic.
Or even better, when you're not in the time zone when the meeting occurred and you're in the channel and you wake up and there's like 800 posts in some random channel, and it's the play-by-play of a meeting you weren't in. Reading through that's always something.
Right. It'd be like listening to a baseball broadcast that Ronald Reagan read in 1938.
Exactly. So if you are a Zoom or Teams product manager, I guess Gong maybe, my product marketing or product management recommendation is, how they make those summaries and transcripts of the meetings? Please annotate the transcript with chat, because right now they're just disconnected, right? You've got your chat, you get that download and you're like, what are these messages, and then you have a transcript, which is good because that was the surface of the meeting. But if you could like integrate the chat with timestamps, maybe call it out like, oh, this comment was made while they were talking.
Oh yeah. Some basic YouTube
shit. A little pop-up video. A little pop-up video is like best chats. It's just throwing up, because you want something to like. Not every chat deserves a highlight. You just want the good ones.
And then consumes meetings after the fact. I would like.
So the second thing I'm hearing is that I can apply the past 25 years of annotating the internet skills that I have
absolutely
to every corporate meeting that I'm in.
Yes. Boat shoes be damned.
I can be like, have you seen the bookmarks I've tagged for the last 25 years on this topic? No? Here's a link.
You're like, let me introduce you to Delicious. Every
too
meeting
funny.
it ends with
Here's-
Cote talking
here's-
about Delicious.
Here's 5 newsletter editions I've written about this. One of them dating back to 2002. Also, there was here's a YouTube short of Brandon telling me about product marketing that I think would be useful here. All right. Well, speaking of talking about product marketing, it looks like IBM. Good time to check in with them. They closed the HashiCorp acquisition, so I think they're going to be terraforming everything. Everything's handled there, and also they announced they were buying Data Stacks. Now, every time there's a company that has the word data, stacks, or box in it, yeah, I'll
You're
start
like,
over.
IBM's going to be there. They're in the mix. You know, you got some data, you got some boxes. IBM.
Right. I have to like sort out because what do we got? We got data stacks, data blocks,
Yep.
info
Databricks.
blocks, data
Info
bricks.
blocks.
But this is the Cassandra one, if I remember.
Yes.
But I think, it doesn't, and I guess the other thing that popped up here was, this is one of these things I thought was already done. HashiCorp was officially the acquisition closed. So, I think it kind of comes back to one of these things. It's like, I don't know, in the spirit of just sort of like, I don't know, trying to be more positive. It's sort of like, I just feel like this is just like, this is the IBM role. This is what you do.
Yeah.
You like these companies get big enough.
Enterprise.
Nobody
Blue.
wants to deal with too many
Yeah.
vendors. IBM has a global sales force. It has a lot of technology. It writes a lot of ELAs. These companies have gotten to a point that they don't necessarily want to continue to grow that side, kind of, if you will, the boring part of software, growing enterprise sales and doing all of, the contracts and things like that. So it just seems like, I don't know. I just feel like this is sort of like, it's almost like IBM, a good private equity, a good place for people to go and sort
It's
of
a
roll up their
retirement
different
home.
companies. I know, but people I think that's the common thing. People are like, oh, it's so bad or whatever. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of like,
Well,
kind of what the world wants. This is
Well,
kind of what
well,
people
so-
want.
serving a purpose. Yes.
So one, yeah, that was my making fun of startup names aside. Like that was my general takeaway is yeah, this seems like the IBM that I know. And maybe to build on the metaphor, it's not so much that it's a retirement home, it's the suburbs. Like, you live in a glass house condo in town, you're doing your thing, you're young and virile, like just spending money right and left, waking up hungover every morning. And then eventually you're like that Kevin Bacon in that movie I can't remember, on a train platform somewhere. You're having a kid, everything's cool, the suburbs.
Was that the one where
Is
there
that
was
like
a
she's
body?
having a baby or something?
Oh, see, I was gonna go with what was it, Stir of Echoes, when there was a dead body in his basement. But sure, whatever.
I don't remember. I'll have to look that one up. It was very young Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, this was anyway. Before we go down that tangent, I kind of think it more of like a gated community / assisted living, right? Because
you're still going for it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're not quite in a rest home, right? But a lot of the stuff you don't want to deal with is dealt with, right? You've got an HOA that they've got a big gate on the front to make sure that you don't have to deal with everybody. They're keeping the lawns all the same, and they probably have yard crews come out. Maybe there's a golf course in the back. It's not it's a slower pace, but but it's not like a nursing home or whatever, right? There's no Nurse Ratched, making you take your pills. It's still just kind of like, it's chill, but you know what? It doesn't have a lot of individuality, right? That IBM, that big blue HOA is just stamping that stuff out.
Yeah. But so I think I don't know. I think that assessment's good, Brandon. It's basically this is the IBM. They kind of worked out the smart cities and kind of like intelligent Watson stuff. They've kind of shifted it down to just like, we have a portfolio of IT stuff.
Right.
And that's
but
it.
I do think the thing that's interesting is they do always, like this recent announcement says, like, it's going to complement IBM's Watson X data. And it's always one of those things where it's like, I feel like if they just left that part out, if they just said, like it always has to be wrapped up in like another IBM brand. And it's just I don't know. I just feel like there was something more intellectually honest. And it was just like, we have a great sales and marketing machine that people like to buy from. you have a company where you've gotten to the point like you don't want to continue to do the enterprise stuff anymore. Just come over here and we'll do that for you. We don't have to wrap it in any like Watson thing or anything like that. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like it's like a Costco kind of feeling. It's like you have products that people want. You don't want to build a website. Give us a good deal. We'll put it on the pallets. People will buy your Vitamix. They'll buy your sporting clothes. They'll buy they'll buy your name brands. It's all going to be here. We can help you do that. And like when you go to Costco, it's not like Costco's trying to like tell you they revolutionize anything. They're like, we have all the stuff. It's pretty cheap. You'll like it. That's a good. I don't know. I just think that's like a value proposition that people like want to run away from. And it's like, I think that's a good value proposition, though.
Yeah, this is a good metaphor to explore, because I think I was thinking sometime this week about in the infrastructure tech world, just the integrated platform pitch as people could imagine I would be, right? And like, it's not like compelling, like for whatever the better way of saying sexy
that
is.
assumes
It's not
that
sizzly,
enterprise
right?
IT somewhere is compelling.
But your metaphor is apt, right? Like when Costco brings in like let's say now we're selling the hefty trash bags that have like name brand hefty bags. They've got that great drawstring, and this is going to integrate perfectly with one of our customers' favorite products, the wide format Costco saran wrap with built-in slicer. And you're just like, no, I just want to buy some fucking garbage bags.
I just want to
right?
try. Yeah. And you
like,
want to but I think you hit it right, because I think that Costco feeling is what I'm reminded of IBM. It's like, you just want to know, like, these brands are good. The buyers at Costco are good. IBM usually acquires companies that have like a good profile, good technology that's widely used. And it's just like, hey, it's just a great place to buy the software that
and you're like,
you probably need. That's all you need. You don't have to you don't have to do anything else special. It's okay.
I've got this long-term EULA called a Costco membership. I'm not going to cancel that, right? I'm just, I'm going to go there and hang out with the reps in the red vests, get myself a hot dog, kind of walk the halls. That's kind of a reverse enterprise sales thing. Like, you know, the customer is walking the halls instead of the reps walking the halls. And you know, just if you got what I need, I'm going to buy it. What do you want, right? And I don't really care about the price. I just want to know I'm not getting fucked. But I'll pay more than like otherwise I'd be a Sam's member or not a member of anywhere and shop at like Dollar General.
So what is Sam's in this metaphor?
I would think Sam's is like Oracle. That's like the Oracle place. It's like Oracle's bought a lot of stuff. Go ahead. What was your take?
Oracle. I mean, if Oracle had a larger services arm that was more rapacious, sure.
Yeah, but it's like Sam's, not as good as Costco. I just feel like I don't know. I don't shop there as much. So I shouldn't say it, but I feel like it's just like, I don't know. Costco, it's where, and I really do think the mainframe I want to tie to the gasoline, right? It's like, well, we got to get gas. We're going to Costco anyway. Why not? Like, we're already locked into getting gas there. Why not walk around? What else? Who knows? Maybe I need a TV. Maybe I need an ERP system. Maybe I need some Apache Cassandra. I don't know. I'll just go in there and get it.
Now going on a tangent of this thing, does that mean that the Costco liquor store is open source because you don't have to be a member to shop there?
True. That's a good question.
I think maybe the Costco liquor store is, you know, there's certain SKUs you have in enterprise software that you're not really supposed to tell people about, but you only tell people about if they ask, if they're like, hey, I only want to buy Cassandra. I don't want to buy an app server, right? And then, you know, you have a few more meetings, you eat a hot dog, maybe a slice of pizza, and then you're like, okay, just come over to this store over here, right? Like,
you still got that DataStax sales crew? I'd like to buy some.
Yeah, you can buy if you want to buy some liquor, but like, you don't want the word to get out that anyone can go to the Costco liquor store, right? Like it's just sort of like a, you know, maybe if you have that like Gartner technology professional subscription and you read through the 62-page paper, like you can find this, or if you do an inquiry with your personal shopper at Gartner, they'll tell you this, but normal people wouldn't know. You're not going to read about it on the news stack or anything like that. Well, speaking about things that you might read on the news stack, I think you know, I started finally doing some actual write some code for me about something I know nothing about, and here's the here's the I don't know, the error stack, figure my shit out for me. And I was doing it in a very crude way, and I was thinking like, why doesn't my Claude UI just do this for me? Why do I have to go over here and do it? Like, it seems like, and I know Cursor will do this and everything, but it seems like what's going to be the state of IDEs for a while? Is that? Maybe I'll just have a pause and restart that so we can put the ad in. How about that?
You want to see? Okay.
We can pick it up.
Hold up. We'll do a whole thing. Here we go.
Yeah.
Why don't you just we'll you finish the last topic. Now introduce the first of all, for those listening and enjoying watching the production, you can tell like we haven't had an ad in a while. We're out of practice here. So one, welcome to behind the scenes. Two, if you're listening to this, are watching us online, please subscribe to the podcast, Fork Around and Find Out. It's a great podcast hosted by some of our friends, and you can hear more technology discussion. So, all right. So Cote,
all right,
we'll say, okay, just so you're here. So we paused, you finished the IBM rollups, and now we're talking about IDs. Go ahead.
I got a better way into that. I kind of lost track of what I was saying, but okay.
Here we go.
We'll figure it out. So I don't do a lot of the using the AI in your coding and your IDE stuff, but I think over the past 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks, there's been a lot of AI companies and like even Google coming in here and there. Like there's been a lot going on as far as like, let's have the AI companies. It feels like they've got some like slide decks that are basically like, what if we took over all of programming and put that in our TAM? And like, I think Claude has like, is Claude the one that has an operator thing, or is that OpenAI or something like that? Like maybe they're looking at like
Anthropic is the one that's made the most noise about it, and I think they generally are considered to have the best model for software development. And that being, I think the new release of 3.7, Claude 3.7 is supposed to be even better, and it now has, you can do everything from the command line. You don't even have to use the IDE. You can basically just kind of tell it what you want to do, and it will just magically, if you will, set up and build your entire project for you. So Claude seems to be the front runner, if you will, in, let's call it, software development.
And then, I mean, I haven't done enough like coding with an AI to think about it, but does that work, Brandon? Could you just say, set up the project for me and then load up like the Claude desktop thing and like start programming?
Absolutely. I think, I've already mentioned it a million times. Like, I think Cursor is the best UI. So like, I mean, certainly the either, it's interesting. Claude's kind of done everything from the command line. So that's cool. I mean, I get that part, but like the obvious, and if you use Cursor, you can switch out the models. They basically let you pick which model. So there's some useful there, but I mean, and I think this all kind of came from a post, one of your old good friends here, Cote, wrote, James Governor over at RedMonk. So he's kind of making the point that really all, I think his one thing that was kind of funny. For a long time, it was just like, you learned Emacs, you learned VI, you picked your religion, and that's what you did forever. And then over time, maybe you picked some of these different IDEs, but things have been pretty stable. But I think his point here was sort of like, hey, this is all up for grabs now. Like the way people are going to do this going forward, whether it is kind of a command line thing, because certainly you can do that with Claude, just kind of tell it what you want and it will build out, the entire project, or you can do something more like Cursor, which is sort of like you kind of watching what it does, which is what I like, because it kind of because I'm learning about what it is. And also I kind of have to know, if I'm building something, I kind of have to know what it does, at least at some level. So I think Cursor kind of like showing you, making it very visually obvious what's happening is definitely been very helpful. But you can definitely make the argument like maybe the next step here is kind of lights out, right? Lights out programming. I mean, I'm not there yet. I haven't seen it do that because it still makes enough mistakes that you have to like tell it to do something differently. But if you believe in this AGI or things going forward, that like, yeah, absolutely, all of this could be autonomous. I don't know, Matt, what has your experience been?
I definitely not ready for lights out coding, but what I've kind of been thinking about with all these different IDEs and the pluggable AI models is what's kind of happened is VS Code kind of became the Chrome of IDEs, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody uses the same engine, and then they wrap it with like their workflows, their skins, what their business models. And so as long as you're mostly familiar with VS Code as a style, you can drop in between these things and figure out which flow works best for you. I think it's a matter of time before uh, it's not. I'm hesitant to go for the lights out coding model, but more and more of the lifting being done for you, and you become kind of an overseer. You become a product manager for your IDE, where you're like, yeah, okay, I want you to do a little more testing over here. Can you tighten up these inputs? And developers are going to become product managers, whether they like it or not.
But I kind of feel like even another metaphor I was thinking about, like editor, right? Because I think that's more from writing. But like, I don't know, maybe it's just like a personality type. Like, I really like that. I like seeing stuff and making edits to it versus having to go through and like try to catch all the grammatical errors. The same thing with like, I like when like the for loops and the while loops and all that stuff is kind of written, for you, and it's just because I don't have to remember how to do it all correctly. And it's sort of like just allows me to, I guess all of this comes back to, it allows me to like work at the level of abstraction that I feel very natural at, and I guess that's person by person. I think some people love to write grammatically correct, perfect prose very quickly. I think some people do that on the coding side. They can like write, a function as quick as that, as an AI can do it. So maybe that's just sort of like where the friction area is. Like what level of abstraction do you personally like to work at? And then how does AI change that? For me, I just find it like, it really balances where I want to be. I don't know, Cote, you're the writer here. Like, what do you think?
I feel like we talked about this obliquely before, but it's always nice to have a name for something, but there is that, we'll say, layer of abstraction that you're comfortable with. And yeah, like I often wonder, could I just have this thing write something for me and publish that? Like, or I'm not supposed to do that. Like, you're supposed to write the thing on its own. But similarly with the programmer, like, to think about it another way, like when I don't do programming anymore, but every time I try to go like figure out how to do something in Ruby or Python, I'm like, but yeah, where's the code that actually does stuff? Right? Like it's like all this code that just like makes these method calls that rely on something else. Whereas like, and then you even look at my current workplace's thing, the Spring framework, and you look at the way Spring is nowadays, and you're like, I don't understand why I just wrote 2 lines of code and now I have a web application. Like, what is happening here? And so there is that, like, whatever this line is, like, you want to know what's happening what's happening right below the surface, and you might even want to write it yourself. So like with regular writing, I guess the equivalent is, if you're in this very high level abstraction, you could say like, I've got an idea about IBM. They're just like a Costco of IT, and like, it's fine. Can you write me something on that? And like, there's probably some programming languages that are kind of the equivalent of that. Like, I need a web application that has a text box, and when I click submit, it saves it to a database. And you can kind of, that's like what a Rails app is, if I remember. And so like, whatever that line is, probably is pretty situational and personal to what people are doing. And the higher it is, the more fucked IDEs are. Like,
Go ahead, Matt.
I like to start a little lower because I feel like it kind of gives me a foundation for understanding when I have to come back and debug. My expectation is when I write something, I'm going to revisit it later, and so I don't want to just like splat it out and never come back. Well, I would like that, but chances are good you're going to come back and need to refine it. So I want to watch it or actually implement it at a lower level initially, and then build up that muscle of I've gone through the basics of parsing CLI arguments and getting my logic in place. And now that I have a good feel for how this is all laid out, I can come back in and say, okay, now that I need to add this in, I can trust all that other stuff has been done. And I was familiar enough with it at the time that nobody's going to go back and mess with that stuff because it's fine. And I feel like it gives me a better foundation.
So, but I think all of that makes sense. And I guess what I've been thinking about going forward, and this is where the James Governor article came into it, is like, this is more the business side. It's like, is this a place where you could, because for longest time, right, cannot make any money with developer tools, right? And it's like, I wonder two things. One, like certainly people are paying for Cursor, right? At least at the moment. And then two, going forward, like, is this going to be something people pay for? And if not, is this something that's good to like own? Kind of like, like Matt, you were saying before, VS Code is sort of the default, if you will, skin for all of these things. So is that valuable to Microsoft? So it's like Google and Cursor and all these people kind of rolling out different tools, like Cote, for you, like put on your old strategy hat, like is winning in this area like actually useful, or is it just going to be like, sure, that's great, you won, but there's no real benefit to it?
Like winning in the AI is writing code for you area?
Yeah, or like, yeah, so you become the preferred platform that everyone uses to, like, if you will, write the code, which implicitly means they're using your AI engine behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is that like a good winnable, like if I said to like a business CEO, it's like, we won this, would they be like, great? Or they'd be like, I don't think we can make any money on that.
Yeah. No, that would definitely be good because all the AI stuff is like closed source, right? Like you can download your own models and run it, but basically like all that kind of functionality is like all the stuff you would do would be valuable. Like you couldn't do for free. Like, and eventually you would end up running it as, you'd want to use the service version of it, or like, even if you host it on your own. But I think we're long past the generation, maybe 5 years, like the generation where like people found infrastructure that is susceptible to being used for free, right? Like, I mean, there's all sorts of little weird things here and there, but like the amount of effort it would take to like make free versions of that versus just like $20 a month or whatever you want to charge, like would be great, let alone integrating it into the whole like tool chain that you have, right? And
I don't think so. I mean, I think if you look at what do developers do? They write code, they make open source. They don't like paying for things. I think that everyone's going to find that they have a decently strong AI compatible machine on their desktop, Apple Intelligence or the like, that if you have a framework that provides a lot of scaffolding and sane defaults for languages, can do a lot of heavy lifting for you. And then, I don't know, you pull down half of GitHub and turn it into your training model. Like, that doesn't sound like too much of a stretch to be an open source baseline that just kind of keeps raising the water level for, oh, you want to knock out a Python web app? You don't have to pay for that. That's something your IDE should do for free.
I guess the theory I would have is that it's technically feasible. And then the question I would have would be more cultural, is like, do the kids still want to give their shit away for free? Right? Because like someone has to do all of that work and then open source it just kind of like haphazardly, or has like the 20 to 30-year-old programmer culture evolved where they're like, I want to make money, right? Like,
well,
but I don't know where that balance is nowadays, so it's difficult to say.
But that's the thing. It doesn't take a lot of open source developers to keep raising the water levels. I mean, open source is not a huge number of people. I mean, it is, but when it's something as popular as an IDE, that actually has a lot of open source eyes on it and a lot of open source hands. I think we're in a gold rush for AI IDE development right now, but I also think like come 1889, people aren't going to be going to California for the gold rush. They're going to be going because there's a lot of people already there, and it has other things available to it. So I think maybe the lights out coding model is the future for AI, and that's going to be commercial-ish for a long time. But I think if you think that the basics of AI IDE stuff has a long-term life, I don't think it does.
Well, and I think history definitely would agree with you, because we all can name of like many IDEs. They kind of flow with different languages come up. Like Java comes up, there's like a whole bunch of those businesses, and then they slowly, kind of like die off over time. But it does kind of raise the question I think is interesting here, is that, So if that is true, then like why for every evolution do people keep fighting over this? Because there's like Microsoft has a solution, Google has a solution.
Because you make money
Cursor
during the gold rush.
I don't know, but like
somebody's making money.
Well, certainly Cursor makes sense because that's their whole business. The other ones I think is interesting, like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, whoever, right? It's always like IBM used to do this too. Just like every few years, it'd just be like, was it NetBeans? I can't remember which one it was. There'd be like another ID, it's like, or maybe even Sun. I can't remember which one. Someone
like Eclipse. Right?
Yeah, so Eclipse and NetBeans, like somebody would always be fighting over this. I mean, it's sort of like, and it's always like, why are you fighting? Like, is there anything to win here, right? But it does seem to like technology companies, I guess, want to fight over this area. Whether or not it's ever really been valuable, I guess is an open question.
Yeah, I guess like the IDE, I mean, there's always IntelliJ, right? That's the one commercial IDE that's existed forever. That's not like open source. But like, I guess I'm thinking of like less so the IDE than like all that stuff underneath it that's doing the magic, right? But your question was, do you have to own the IDE for it? And yeah, I don't know. Another way of analyzing it is to say like, well, who doesn't have an IDE? Like Google doesn't make one. Amazon doesn't make one. Everyone else except Microsoft doesn't make one, more or less. I'm overstating it, but like, I guess that would suggest that like maybe at the annual meeting of all programming or related tech companies, someone like they do play musical chairs and they're like, you own this for the next decade, sucker.
Who doesn't have their own, browser engine?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
there's one. There's two. There's Mozilla.
I guess Apple has an IDE, right? They have their
right.
Xcode thing.
But Safari uses WebKit. Everybody's on WebKit except for Mozilla, and is Brave on WebKit? I mean, I think like that's the de facto. And so you've got this VS Code that is everywhere. Everyone's like runs with that, and they don't worry about the WebKit of IDEs.
Well, I think maybe the way to like think about this going forward, I guess the fun thing for us all to watch, I think, is clearly Cursor, right? They're a company exclusively doing this. They're doing well. They've raised a lot of money. So if you believe it's going to be successful or there's going to be money to be made, I think they're the one to invest in. And then in a few months or years, if we see Cursor is acquired for a small sum of money by a large technology company, we will end the cycle. We will say once again, there was no big money inside Cursor, and there was no big money in IDE. So that'll be an easy way to kind of see what happens in this space.
I think the real opportunity, Matt Ray, is you should go to your Emacs friends and be like, the window's open. we could bring it back.
We're back, baby.
Well, they definitely make it so you can plug in AI stuff into it, but yeah, it's not as nice as.
I mean, maybe if the whole Wiz thing doesn't work out, the Emacs people could hire you to be the DevRel that makes the difference for the Emacs IDE.
I think I might be good.
Just imagine you could go to a conference and you could be like, now I just showed you how to program in 15 different programming languages. Let me show you how to make a Gantt chart out of ASCII.
Yes. It's like, how many of you have coded in eLisp? Oh, not a lot of hands.
I'm going to keep on going anyways and show you some eLisp. Well, we should mention briefly before we get to other stuff. Skype is being shut down. We used to record lots of episodes on Skype. I think every podcast out there who's older than 5 months old is probably like Skype. Loved that thing. It was great. It was a major part of our life. So good job, Skype. You did it. Like it's good stuff. Now, speaking of things that you did,
no
Brandon,
eulogy for Chime.
Well, I guess Chime. I haven't experienced Chime. I think I actually used it a few times. Probably great. Good job.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Something people would like to say goodbye to, Brandon, in their life is bureaucracy. But we always have some each episode. What is it this episode?
Well, we had a lot of good feedback on multi-tools from our, I guess, 2 episodes ago. So one, Jesus, I think, summarized it best. He says the multi-tool, the tool to reach for when the inconvenience of getting the proper tool is greater than the inconvenience of using the multi-tool. And I thought that was the perfect description of the multi-tool. I won't read them all out. I'll just say Warren made a recommendation of a multi-tool. Michael had a recommendation, and our own Matt Ray came in with what did you recommend? The Swiss Tech Utility
Swiss
Key
Tech.
6-in-1. So if you would like more recommendations of multi-tools, and Warren even recommended one that doesn't have a knife, so it's like TSA friendly, which I think is funny. There's like a new category of multi-tools that can get through an airport. But anyway, if you like to read more about the various multi-tools, because there was quite a bit of discussion, you should join the Software Defined Talk Slack. There you can get in there and recommend your own multi-tool, if you will. And then also, Cote, I wanted to go all the way back to one of the interviews you did on your Software Defined Interviews podcast. And please help me with the name here. It was is it Marino? And what's his last name? Mm-hmm. He said the following, and everyone should go back and listen to the podcast. But here's a quote I pulled from the interview that I thought was worth discussing, at least for a moment. It says, quote, "Service mesh was built by developers to solve a problem that was solved many times before. The people," this is my own little, I'm substituting it, app developers, wanted these problems solved. We're not talking to the people, again, my annotation, network engineers who already solved these problems. So I just want to say that whole right there, that whole statement, I believe that should be a KubeCon panel discussion. I want a couple people from the Service Mesh community, Istio, and our friends over at Linkerd. I want them on stage. Marino should be there, and maybe a couple network engineers, because I just thought to myself, I was like, this is a 1 hour topic. I want it to be discussed in much greater detail, because I think he makes a lot of good points in there, but I think a lot of people would have some disagreements. Yeah. So
that would be a great panel conversation. They need to have at least 2 people who have some sort of Cisco certification. And then two people who have like a Kubernetes ambassador network certification level 5 or whatever, and just have them basically just talk and see what happens. See what
happens.
The deal is.
Yeah, I love that. So check it out. And then finally, of course, if you would like stickers, all you have to do is send your postal address to me at stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I'll be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
Well, there's a lot of conferences coming up. I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but very soon, as in tomorrow, there's DevOps Days LA in Scale. So you might be able to go to that this weekend if you're in LA. There's also Open Source Career Day, March 9th, which looks lovely. I'll be speaking next week at the VMware user group, the VMUG, in the Netherlands here. There's DevOps Day Chicago, March 18th. SRE Day London, which is March 27th and 28th. I'll be there, and also be at Monkey Gross, which is the same days in London. And then there's Cloud Foundry Day, May 14th in Palo Alto. Indici Oslo, May 21st and 23rd. And then KubeCon EU, April 1st to 4th, where I unfortunately won't be, but it should be fun. Now, speaking of things that should be fun, Matt Ray, what do you have to recommend this episode?
My recommendation this week is a new Netflix mini series called 0 Day. It's not good, but it's entertaining.
And it has a great cast. You should.
It has a great cast.
Robert De Niro leads the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I'm watching it, and I'm kind of like, if I had popcorn, I'd be throwing it at the screen. But also, it's a popcorn show, right? So it's worth watching. It's, do not go in with high expectations, but it's entertaining. It is what it is. But it's a political drama about some, cyber attack knocking, all computers, all phones, all embedded devices offline at the same time, for an hour, and then coming back online in the aftermath of that. It's like, I'm a little skeptical of the premise, but it's fun to watch.
Okay. All right. I saw the description. Isn't he like ex-president comes in to consult?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can never get into like the sad Robert De Niro movies where he's like trying to play like a morose Tommy Lee Jones.
The funny thing is he looks just like the old guy in Up.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, how about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend?
Well, just picking up on Matt's recommendation there, I think some say that is the best cast in television of all time. So, I'm not endorsing the show. I'm just saying that was an interesting, weird fact that, like, because when you go through and you see it, like, it is a lot of like very famous and good actors.
And you're like, this should have been a lot better, but it's
okay. that's probably the biggest thing. It's like, wow, you had a lot of great people here, and this is what you did with it. So there's a little bit of disappointment there.
But it's cheesy.
Yeah, it's fun. All right. Well, I have 2 recommendations this week. So one is I'm Not a Robot, which won the 2025 Academy Award winner for Best Short Film, and it is available on YouTube. And Kote, it is a Dutch film, right?
Oh.
So there you go. So it's in Dutch mostly with a little bit of English in there. Although after watching it, I was like, oh, every once in a while in Dutch they kind of start using English words. I'm like, I know what they're saying. So I thought that was interesting. So it's a fun 22-minute movie about let's just say it starts with a woman trying to complete a CAPTCHA, right? And it goes from there. And it's a fun movie. And I feel like if there's anyone that should recommend a Academy Award winning Dutch short film, kind of about technology, that feels like it should be the Software Defined Talk podcast. So I feel like we've succeeded in the most niche of niche movies. And again, it's free. You can just watch it on YouTube. So nothing you have to do. And then finally, I'm going to give away something for free here. Hopefully I wanted to see if we have anybody that likes to ski in the audience. I have a couple friends and family passes left for Icon. So if you are a skier and you know what Icon is, and you're going to an Icon mountain and you would like one of these friends and family passes that'll save you like roughly 25-30%, depending on where you're going. This is what you have to do. You just have to email me at questions@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Put in like something in the subject like Icon free pass or something along those lines. And if they're still available, I will give them to you, because of course I don't want Big Ski to win. I want to give away the final few free passes or if you have discounted passes I have. I want them I don't want them to win. I don't want them to be unused. I want someone to claim them. So I don't care what you do with them. Give them to your kids, use them yourself. Just someone use these passes. We can't fail here. So hopefully there's one or two skiers in the audience that will want those. So email me.
I think the subject line needs to be Icon have free pass.
Oh, even better. You'll get a little emoji if you use that one. I love it.
Yeah. Well, my inspired by Matt Ray's recommendation, I'm going to recommend a little series I watched recently, the Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. I was talking with the other American who lives in the neighborhood, and I was like, whatever happened to that Rick Grimes guy? And he's like, oh, they have a whole show about that. And I was like, wow, I haven't been following the trade magazines close enough because I had no idea. Yeah. So I went and watched that. And how did you put it, Matt Ray? It was entertaining, but not very good, I think.
I think that's the era of TV we're living in.
I think that's my review of it. It was entertaining, not very good, but I watched the whole thing, and so it's if you're invested in all that zombie shit, you'll be fine. It's okay, and it's got that old guy from Lost, who's the guy who's he was in a wheelchair, and then when he gets to the island, he can walk around.
John Locke. I don't know his name. I don't know the name of the actor now, but yes,
it's got that guy. Big cast. And so he's always fun to see. Well, speaking of things that are fun to see or hear, depending on how you've consumed this has been another episode, time well spent with Software Defined Talk. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/509. You can see all those conferences that I skipped over and went really fast. There's a whole bunch of links that we didn't talk about that we have listed out, and ones that we did. If you really want that kind of multi-tool that apparently you can take on an airplane, so maybe you can finally take apart the toilet and see why they put that tape on top of it. You could also find links to those tools as well at softwaredefinedtalk.com/509. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Is that the Roomba, or is that like a printer going in the background?
It's a
Roomba
vacuum cleaner. No, it's a full-on vacuum cleaner now.
Has the Roomba entered your room? Me. How far away is the Roomba?
It's like 20 feet away.
It's 20 feet away. Okay, I felt like I was like, does Matt have a Xerox machine? It feels like a Xerox machine's going in the background. So
yeah, I need to go get to the vacuuming and cleaning and whatnot.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Bye. All right. Well, listen, thanks for Matt Ray has to run. He's got to go. So we'll let him trail off here. I just want to thank Michael for for utilizing the chat correctly. He's given us a little piece of real-time information. It was Terry O'Quinn. That is the actor that played John Locke. So there you go. Oh, yeah. Kote. So a little, if you will, chat action right here. And then we will be recording next week at really probably the same time. We'll have a little daylight. Actually, it will be the same time in the US, but a little daylight saving switch for Matt and Cote. So hopefully everyone can make it. And until next time, take care.